Morning, everyone. Good job. Good morning and welcome to African American Research Library and Cultural Center, which is AARLCC. Welcome to AARLCC Library and thank you for coming for the fantastic program by Mr. Richard Gregory Christie. He is one of the famous, well-known children's book author and an illustrator. So I'm going to talk about him a little bit and then he is going to come in a couple of minutes. You're going to see him, okay? We are going to have a fantastic program, but only my request, when he's talking, when he's doing something, please pay attention and hear carefully. So one day, you may be one of the author, one of the illustrator, you'll become very famous and big, right? But right now, we have to pay attention and see what he's doing, how he became an illustrator, an author of a famous author and illustrator in this country. So please, when he come, please pay attention and hear what he is going to say to all of us. Even I'm excited to hear from him, okay? So today's author's name is Mr. Richard Gregory Christie. He is an American author and illustrator of picture books, chapter books, middle grade novels, and album covers, best known for his Coretta Scott King Award-winning books. He got 6 Coretta Scott King Honor Awards. In 2013, he designed the Kwanzaa stamp for the United States Postal Services, the New Orleans Jazz Festival poster, and had art featured on New York City subway cars for an year. Christie's lectures on art, diversity, and literature are family-friendly, and his educational programs are fun and engaging. These art and literacy lectures allow audiences to find a love for books and creativity. He has been a guest speaker at conferences, libraries, and teaches after-school art programs and all over the planet. So please give him a big round of applause to Mr. Richard Gregory Christie. Hey. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more thing I want to show. Okay. This is one of his books, not all of them. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say, he illustrated almost 60 books, 60 children's books. Give him a big round of applause. That's a huge number.
Thank you. This is one of my books, too.
Yes. This is one of his books, and I'm not going to break the surprise. Something is going to happen while you are leaving, but this is one of his books. Also, I want to say one more thing. Here at AARLCC, we have many programs for all the children from kindergarten to 12th grade. So anybody have any questions? My name is Miss V. My name is Venkata, but everybody call me Miss V. That's fine. You can come and see Miss V or Miss Francis, one of the children's librarian, and also you can talk to Mr. Georgios. He's one of our children's librarian. So welcome to AARLCC once again. Please, Mr. Gray.
Thank you. All right, good morning. Good morning. All right, how are you? Good. You know, this is my first time here. I've never been to this library, and I've never been to this part of Fort Lauderdale and this area. But just as was stated before, I am a children's book illustrator these days. When I was very young, I was an artist. I just loved to draw. And these are the kind of books I do. They're books about either history or culture, and I tend to do images of people of color and historical books about people of color. So I want to know, like I said, I've never been in this area before. What grades are you? First and third? I can't hear that. Fifth. Okay, wonderful. So, first, third, and fifth, if that's correct. I want to know this about you. Does anybody here know what they want to do when they get older? Raise your hand. I want to know by hand. I want to know what your dreams are. What do you want to do when you get older? Yes, you.
Be an NFL player.
NFL player, yes. What is it? Tow truck driver? Doctor? Do you know? What is that? A little bit louder? Police, all right, yes.
I want to be a fireman.
Okay, yes, over there in the green shirt. Police, yes. Firefighter, yes.
A sheriff.
Sheriff.
I want to be an MLB player.
MLB player, okay. How about way in the back, Arizona t-shirt on? Engineer. Yes, you right there, what do you want to do? What is it? Okay, how about you right there with that green shirt on? A lawyer. Yes? Okay. I'm going to get over here one more time and ask another person. What do you want to do when you get older, you think? Fisherman. Okay, so anyone who's not clear about what they want to do, one of the most important things to think about is what do you like to do? What would you do if you had to do it 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, and you wouldn't mind? Because I ask people sometimes, I say, do you like ice cream? And people say, yeah, I love ice cream. And I said, what would happen if, would you eat ice cream for 10 years straight? 10 years, every day, morning, noon, night, ice cream. Most people would say no. No, some people say yes and some say no. But that's what work can be like. If you don't have a connection to what you're doing, if it doesn't really fulfill you, doesn't matter how much money you make, you're not gonna like your job. You're gonna just think, oh, I gotta do this to make money. So I'm gonna show you a little bit about my life before we get into what an illustrator is. And what I want you to really understand is that when people see my life and see the things I've accomplished, they always say to me, man, you were so lucky. How did you get that? How did you? The luckiest thing in my life is that when I was very young, I knew what I wanted to do, and I had a straight idea of what to do. So I had a focus. So if you know what you want to do, make sure you focus. All right, so let's start with this before we get started. By show of hands, I want to know, does anybody know what an illustrator is? What's an illustrator?
An illustrator is someone who writes the book.
Now, author writes a book, and an editor makes sure that the artwork and the words match and everything's spelled correctly. What does an illustrator do? Yes?
Who writes words?
Well, the author writes the words. Remember, the author writes. The person who draws those pictures and paints those pictures. I'm the illustrator. My job is to create artwork for books. And when you do that, you have to know how to read very well. You have to learn how to actually do research. That's why I come to a library or go online and look at images. It's so important to educate yourself, because the more successful you become, the more you're on a stage or you have a microphone in front of you, and the more questions you get. So no matter what your circumstances are, education is important to know even about yourself and your own culture, to learn about American culture, world culture, geography, because there's bright things waiting for you. But as you go to different places, education is the most important shield for you. It's the thing that will help you go to any room, any group of people. So that's my message today, to educate yourself and give yourself a good life when you get older by focusing on something that means something to you when you get older. That's where I grew up, a little town called Scotch Plains, New Jersey. It was founded in 1684, and that's the main street. If you were to go back and walk down that main street, a couple blocks, you turn down Jackson Avenue, and you might see me out in the front yard playing. I was just a little kid that loved to go outside, and I also loved to draw. Almost everybody in my neighborhood would always know that I did art. And a lot of times when there's a group of people around in school or a family gathering, I'd just be somewhere drawing and show it to someone, and they'd ask me if I traced the artwork, and I'd say, no, I didn't trace it, I drew it. And then after a while, so many people kept telling me, you are really a good artist. When you get older, you should do art. That's me holding the sign. I grew up in a town, I grew up around people of color, grew up around black people, but my town was mixed up. Everybody went to the same school. And the really nice thing, my next door neighbor, he was a graffiti artist. And he used to do graffiti for the town, for the parks, and do displays and things to decorate the area. But I was lucky enough that he was my next door neighbor. So I could go right next door, and I could ask him to show me how to write letters, how to draw. And if you look, you can see some of the drawings that he did. Like you see at the top, there's a little face up there. And then if you see over to the left, that's me trying to practice. Then down here, you can see, his name was Stephen. He showed me how to draw letters, and then I would practice what he did. And I remember I did those letters, and then he drew that spray can on right at the end of it. So he showed me about how you could do lettering and all kinds of designs. But at that time, all I wanted to do was make things look real. I wanted everything to look like a photograph. So this kind of art I was really focused on. And I would look at a photograph, and then I'd draw it. And when I got better at doing that, I moved on to painting. Thank you. So the thing about being an artist, or maybe even anything, and some of you say you want to do sports, police, fireman, engineer. Sometimes to get really good at something, you don't always focus on the thing you're already doing well. You focus on the thing that you can be better at. So I was getting really good at drawing, but I was not that good at painting. So this is what I started to do. I started to take paints and learn how to not put too much water or too much paint. I just learned. I learned how to be what the materials would do. Now, I was getting really good at painting, really good at drawing, but wasn't that great with people. I wasn't that good at public speaking. I wasn't that good at being in groups of people. So I left Scotch Plains, got on a bus actually, got to New York City, and I went into my dormitory and I started my career in a school called the School of Visual Arts. Now, while I was there, at that time, in order to get into art school, you had to have photographs of your artwork on something called a slide. Anyone know what a slide is, or ever heard of that? No. So a slide is like a sheet of paper, and inside is like a little piece of film, and there's a projector. You put the slide in, and it shoots onto a screen. And it's usually done in a dark room, almost like this, how you see in these images. And what I ended up doing is going into nightclubs where people dance. And I would ask them if I could actually show slides while people were dancing. And people loved the idea so much that they asked me to start painting. They said, the slides are great. People love this. Can you actually paint? Can you put your paint and a canvas up, a big canvas, and while everybody's dancing and the music is playing, can you paint? And I used to have people watch me paint. And even today, I go all over the country now and have people watch me draw and paint. That's in New York, Connecticut, and also it is in Nashville, Tennessee. And I teach art classes to everybody, young people, adults. I teach them how to do art. I also love to travel. So sometimes what's good about being an illustrator, I don't have to go to the same building. I can paint and draw anywhere. I brought my paints with me here to Florida. And so I'll be painting if I get to my hotel room, I'll be painting and drawing later tonight. I love doing art. I love the freedom of being a freelance illustrator. Now, a big part of being an artist is luck. What I mean by that is I've done many jobs. One big job was to work with the actress Queen Latifah, and also Chris Rock, and also worked with Lawrence Fishburne. And we did a series of movies that were animated on HBO Kids, and they were also animated on Netflix. But now it's been turned into books. Anyone know who Garrett Morgan is? Who can tell me? Who can tell me who's Garrett Morgan? What did he do? Who is that? Yes. Yes. Yes, with your hand up. Who's Garrett Morgan? Anybody know who Garrett Morgan is? Yes? Nope. He's a real person. Yes. He invented he made improvements on the automobile traffic light. Okay, does anybody know who Thomas Edison is?
Yes. Yes.
Do you know who Benjamin Franklin is?
Yes.
So here's the thing, a lot of times people know inventors like Edison, but Garrett Morgan is just as important. Imagine a traffic light. So that's what that book's about. It's called Saving the Day, and it's an animated film. You can find it usually on YouTube or something. But it's about a real person who invented automobile traffic light. Another person is called Bessie Coleman. I did that with Lawrence Fishburne and Karyn Parsons, who's an actress too. She wrote it, I illustrated it. And that's about a woman that learned to fly a plane in French. She went to France to do it, and she was born in actually Texas. Another lucky thing was to be able to do the cover of Atlanta Parent magazine, and you can see that. And my biggest job was the Kwanzaa stamp. I did that for the United States Postal Service. So I actually painted it, and they shrunk it down, and it's a little stamp. When you paint something small like a stamp, it's really hard to do a lot of details. You have to make sure it's very graphic so that even if it's small, everything shows up pretty well. Now, a job that was the most popular job, maybe not the biggest, but the most popular was I did a painting for the train system in New York City for the subway. This was on every car, on both sides of the car, for one whole year. So how many people you think saw this painting during 1 year while it was up? How many you think? 1 million? There's 8 million people just in the area like Manhattan, New York City. I mean, in New York, there's 8 million people in the main area. So it's over 8 million. It's higher than 8 million. Yes? How many? Higher than 8 million. How many? How many you think?
10 million.
Higher than 10 million, yes. 11, higher than 11. Let's go up. How much? How many? 200 million. Higher than 200 million. How many? Sure, let's both. Yeah, how many?
7,000.
You're going down. 7,000. How many? How many? How many? 1,000? We're in the millions. How many?
8 million.
How many people in New York City on the cars 1 year? Yes, in the back over there. How many you think? How many? 1 billion? Correct. 1 billion people. 1 billion. So I live right now in Stone Mountain, Georgia, near Atlanta. And at the time, the transit system in New York called me and asked me to do the subway painting. So I did it at my desk, and then they made it into a poster. The original artwork is in the Transit Museum in New York City. And like I said, 1 billion people saw that. I didn't tell any friends. I just did the job and let it hang out in the subway system. And a lot of them emailed me or took pictures. And a lot of people saw that poster. I was really happy to do that job. This is a painting I did just for myself in oil. Most of the time, I work with a paint that's called acrylic, or I work with watercolor. This time was an oil painting on canvas. Just did it for myself, and I was very lucky to have a really famous chef buy this painting. His name's Marcus Samuelson. He's one of the youngest chefs to receive an award called the Michelin Star. He's won it many times, and that's very important for a chef to get a Michelin. And he's very famous for what he does. So that magazine article is in Oprah's magazine. That's the first time he took a picture underneath my painting. Then he did it again in Food and Wine, Martha Stewart, all kinds of magazines. And throughout the years, people often call me, or I get commissions based on him helping me to advertise like that. Now, he's most famous for cooking the inaugural dinner. So when Barack Obama first won the presidency, of all the chefs on the planet, he hired Marcus Samuelsson to actually cook. And that's him on the Today Show with Al Roker and Michelle Obama. This is in a place called Stockholm. Anyone ever heard of Stockholm? No. Anybody know where that is? It's in another country. What country? Canada, way across Canada. Stockholm, not China. What country? Not Japan, you're in Asia. You gotta go to Europe. What country in Europe you think Stockholm is in? Yes. It's the capital of, it's outside the United States. Well, yes, where do you think it is? Not Germany, no. Where do you think? Yeah. Italy, you're in the right continent. Where do you think? Yes? It's where the Vikings are from. Well, they are from Minnesota, but they're a lot of like this type of country that has this type of people in Minnesota. Where are the Vikings? Not the team. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Yes. No. Where do you think? Where do you think? Yeah. No. Sweden. And surprisingly, Marcus Samuelsson, he grew up in Sweden. This guy I'm talking about, he grew up in Sweden. He was born in Ethiopia, but when he was very young, his mother died because she was trying to walk them from Ethiopia because there was a disease, tuberculosis, was killing people in the village, and she walked him, she died, and he ended up getting adopted and brought to Sweden. And I'm going to show you later what Sweden's like, but this is a restaurant in Sweden. And I'm showing you because the artwork in the restaurant, I did all the artwork for the bar, for the menus, and also got to go to Sweden a few times. I really like that country. It's really nice. My first jobs, when I first started, were record covers. I used to do album covers. Listen to music, and then do an image that kind of had the feeling of the album cover. Second album cover is called Justice System, Rooftop Soundcheck. And over time, I got into other things, like children's books. If you notice, this job here got me this job there. The company wanted me to do a series of poems based on words that children wrote, and that's what I came up with. I did a different style, and I ended up going into other things. So today, just to want to correct things, I've done over 75 children's books. I work so much, I don't have time to often update my information. 75 books, and I got one book in my suitcase that I'm working on. One book that I left home, so that'll be 77. I love working, that's what I mean, like I do this all the time. Think of what I said about ice cream. If you eat it all the time, you may not, but I really love to paint. I take breaks from it, but I work a lot. This is a book called Freedom in Congo Square. That's how I do the sketches first, and then I do the paintings. I love putting texture and colors together. I love movement and texture, and Freedom in Congo Square has a lot of that in it. So as I started to get success with books, I actually opened up my own business, like a real store. I call it, even today, it's a website, and it's a pop-up shop. It's called Gas Art Gifts. It's an autographed children's bookstore. I know a lot of illustrators and authors for kids' books. So when they sign their books, I put them in stock and I sell them. Now, when I first got the store, it was in a mall. And this is after I cleaned it up. It had potholes, had graffiti on the walls, had trash. I swept it up, got it to this point. Then I started to white wall put primer down. And I kept painting it and adding information. And then I started to put my artwork up. Then I started to learn how to do graphic design and to brand it. And that's what came about. Once you did all that, and once I had that going, people started to come in and take classes, and they started to learn. I taught people how to draw. I taught people how to do crafts, how to paint, and I had a lot of fun doing that. It was a great, great thing to do. We had paint and pour. We had girls' club, reading clubs. Even taught realism, how to look at something and paint it as you see it. Now, what I loved is that it was for the whole community, and those classes were cheap. I had classes as low as $5 a person. You come in and learn how to do something with art. Art is important because it's a good balance for you to express yourself without words. Now, you can see I work in different styles. Sometimes it's silhouette, sometimes it's painting, sometimes it's drawing. But what was nice about the store, it expanded from a little store into another second store that was larger. And that's in a mall called Perimeter Mall in the Georgia area. I branded that store too. So I went from that little store in North DeKalb Mall in Decatur, Georgia, to an additional store in Dunwoody, Georgia. That was the area of the store where you go inside, and that's the front of the store and the inside of the store. Now, before I do a book, you usually see a book, it looks like this. Okay, this is a fairly recent book called Nana's New Soul Food. It's the first time that a major publishing company has used people of color to talk about healthy eating. They don't normally have that. It's a really unique book. It's written by an author named Will Power. It's about a little boy who is just eating. He loves certain foods, and then he finds out his grandma cannot eat those foods. It's not healthy for her. So he goes over to an area in his town, and he finds healthy food, and he brings it back. They go to different places to search for food, and they bring it back. So the words are here, the illustration's there, but before a book becomes a book, it's written down in something called a manuscript. That's what you need to start a children's book. You need to write a story. If you look, there's the person's name, address, the word count, how many words, and also the title and the story itself. Once I get a manuscript, I break it down into a 32-page book. And so usually when I start to paint, it's on page 6, 7. And then I end the paintings on page 32 or 31, 32. Once I get the manuscript and I break it up, I make sometimes a physical book they call it a book dummy. And what you do is you tape a book together, you staple it together, you sketch it out, and then you actually paste the actual words in the book so you know where it's gonna go when you paint it. It's just to help prepare. You always sketch a book when you're working professionally, and then you do the final art. Sketch, final art. And so almost everything you see that's finished began with sketches. These are some other jobs, record covers, posters for jazz festivals, children's book covers, posters for plays, all kinds of work. These are some of the books, and I said 75 books, these are some of them. All of them deal with history or culture. History or culture, that's what you get. And I love working in different styles, as you can see. So before I continue, Any questions about anything I showed you? Anybody have any questions? Yes?
What kind of paint do you do it with?
I work with a water-based paint. It's called acrylic or acrylic gouache. Okay, yes? Mm-hmm.
Do you like fiction, like don't looking like real art, or do you like do you like doing like real art, like illustrate people? Or do you like fiction art?
So there's usually realistic art, and there's artwork that's abstract that looks like almost what the thing feels like. I like doing both, and I like mixing both. When I do something realistic, it's more like that. I paint what I see, how light would hit something. And when I do something more fantastical, then I use abstract images to it. I'm gonna go over here. Any questions over here? Yes, you have a question? When I did my first book, I was 24 years old. Yes. How many years did it take me to do all this? It's ongoing. I still have 2 books to do. I'm under contract for seven more books. So it goes on. Everybody's success is different. I can't tell you that, oh, if you do this, this, and that, you're gonna get successful and you're gonna get book jobs. It just takes time, but it takes consistency. You have to keep doing something that moves you in the direction of your success. Yes.
How much years that you painted?
Oh, I've been painting. I am 53 years old now, and I started when I was very young. So it's been over 45 years, 46 years, something like that. Yeah. Yes?
How long did it take you to make artwork for?
How long? It never really ends, but when I do a painting, it takes one night or maybe about 6 hours or something to do a painting. I actually paint on paper. I don't do digital art. Yes.
Who's the most famous person you worked with?
Can you give the mic to them, please?
I don't know. I work with different, I guess, I would say like most people know Chris Rock, and I'm probably forgetting somebody. I work with different people. I've done different projects, but most of the time people think about celebrities that you're friends, you can pick up the phone and call them. Most of the time, if people do movies or work with celebrities, they're very friendly when you do the job, but when the job's done, it's done. You don't usually go hang out with them. So you might meet somebody, but really the work changes your life, not the people you meet necessarily. Yes. My favorite book I could say is Bad News for Outlaws. It's about a guy named Bass Reeves, first U.S. Marshal color United States. And the crazy thing is, the Lone Ranger, who everybody knows, is based off of this man's life. And so I love like knowing about people of color that kind of got lost in history. That's what I like to do. Yes. What inspired me to do what? To do art? I just wanted to feel good about myself when I was young. I think drawing helped me to showing artwork to people and having them say, wow, you're really good, helped me to keep going. You had a question over here with the microphone?
Oh, does painting give you passion?
It makes me happy. I'll give you that. I don't know about passion, but I have a passion to succeed and to keep going forward in life. I don't want to go backwards. And backwards to me is just like reliving lessons already learned. I like to go forward. So when I have a passion for success, and I'm consistent with what I do to keep getting good results. You can be consistent and get bad results too, but I try to do what's good. Yes.
Have you ever used graffiti in the books you write? Well,
Not so much. Maybe my first book, I did a little bit of scribbling and graffiti, but you know, I mix it up. Yes.
which artwork was your favorite?
Probably that little boy in the boat in this one. It's my most top, like when I sell prints, people love that piece. One person even has it, I think it's like 40, 45 inches long. It's like huge on their, it's a centerpiece in their house. It's a very solemn piece. Yes, you have a question?
How many books did you make?
I've got about 75 now, and I got about 7 under contract. Yes, back there.
How do you?
What's the question? Don't worry, it's all right. What's the question?
How long does it take to come up with your drawings? Like, where do you get your inspiration from?
Living life, when you're an artist, you actually have to go and keep your eyes, your ears open. And when you start to see things, you kind of just put in like a file or a little like kind of database or file in your head. And then when somebody says to you, draw an auditorium full of kids and a man in a black shirt giving a lecture, I just remember what it was like, and I remember the lights, I remember the perspective of the room, and I do it 5 times, and then what I'll do is I'll figure out like what I can draw that will make everybody feel like, oh, that's an auditorium. Okay, I'm gonna show you the best job. I showed you some of my actual physical jobs. Best job of all time was an invitation to a place called Oz. Anyone know where that is? I'm gonna get back to questions. I just want to share this. I'm gonna share this with you. So anybody know where Oz is? Not the Wizard of Oz. That's a book. It's a nickname for a very, very famous country and city. Where do you think Oz is located? Not in France. Look at the map. So you see in the map, you see that big space, that's Africa, the continent. And if you go all the way over, that's Madagascar. You keep going across the ocean, that area in green. Anyone know what that green area is? Australia. Africa is that big continent. It's almost the largest thing you see on that map. Second that looks similar is South America. But all the way across on the other side of the planet is Australia. When I took the flight from New York, 24 hours to get there. It's 18 hours to fly just across LA to get over to Australia, but 18 hours. And then it took quite a time to just get from New York to Los Angeles. Now, I was in my studio in Brooklyn. The doorbell rang. I opened up the door. There was a package. Inside the package was a bottle with sand. Inside the sand was a note, and it was an invitation to go to Australia. I called my friend that invited me, told him I could not afford to go to Australia, and he said, if you are able to do a day of art with kids, I'll cover everything. I looked at the place he said we were going, and it was called Double Island. I looked it up on the internet. It was $100,000 a week to rent. Only the people that are on the island can live there for that time. You rent it like a hotel with $100,000 a week. When I got there, I had to take a helicopter. It was on the main area, and then it's a helicopter to fly over to the island. When we got to the island, that's the person that invited me. His name's Jin. That's his wife and his daughter. That's just some friends, and that's what the island looked like. It's a resort luxury island. Had gift bags, really good food. We ate every day. And here's the thing. He invited close friends from all over. England, Australia, India, Malaysia, Korea, Japan, Greece, Sweden, and Luxembourg. People from all over the world. And what was nice is that I was the only person from the United States. And he could have invited anyone to do that day of art, but he actually invited me to come over. So when I got there, I did my day of art, taught people how to draw and paint. We did a project together, and I saw all kinds of cool things there. Australia is really amazing because they have all kinds of creatures. Now, how many think that's cute? How many people like that? How many people would have that as a pet? It's got a little bottle in its mouth, drinking its milk. Okay, now you don't necessarily want this as a pet because it's a mega bat. It starts like this and ends up like that. And sometimes, if you're walking around in Australia, in Sydney, that's where I was, Sydney, Australia, you look up, you'll see a little flying fox flying around. That's the larger ones, but they have ones that look like chihuahuas, or they're big bats. They're just right up there, just like you see a pigeon or something. And I was surprised to see that. I never saw anything like it. But this was nothing compared to the next thing I want to show you, but you got to be ready for it. You ready? You sure? I don't think you're all ready. I don't know if you're ready. You got to be ready. All right. So after we were on the island, there's no way I'm going to fly 24 hours and go somewhere for a week and then fly 24 hours back. So I said, I'll stay in Australia for 3 months. And at one point, my friend invited me to his home with a couple friends, with their kids. And we were all where the adults were in one room, the kids were in another. All of a sudden, we hear these kids screaming and yelling and going crazy. So all the adults got up and said, what is going on? Because we thought somebody got hurt or fell down. And we walked over into the room, and when we looked, the kids said, look. What? What's wrong? Okay. What? So how many people want that as a pet? Who wants that as a pet? No? Okay. So this spider is called a huntsman spider. It's very common. It's very common in Australia. And the thing about it, it causes a lot of traffic accidents. Because in Australia, in that area of Sydney, one area, like basically their winter is our summer. So July and August is winter there. And December is hot summer. So what happens is that sometimes in the winter time, those spiders want to warm up. And if people leave their cars cracked, those spiders go in the car. And a lot of times people getting up, imagine you get up in the morning, you're tired, and that comes crawling from over the seat. And you're in the car, it's in the car. So a lot of times people sometimes crash the cars and things like that. But they're very fast. They're fast spiders. They're not poisonous. And if you want to learn more, you're in a library. You can go find a book on animals and creatures and insects in Australia. They have great white sharks, poison jellyfish, poisonous snakes. Crocodiles, yeah, I think that's true. I didn't see that as much. They have all kinds of stuff. So the reason I'm showing you these pictures is because I grew up in this little town, and being able to focus on art, I was able to see many countries. I've seen Malaysia, I've seen Dakar, Senegal, Thailand, Colombia, I've seen Germany, France, all kinds of countries. In my 20s, I put a lot of stuff in storage and started doing my children's books in different places. One place is France, one of the most beautiful places you can ever go to if you get a chance. This photograph of this statue, there's statues, it doesn't even do it justice how the light was hitting it, how beautiful the field was. It's really like an amazing place to see. Good food, nice people, all different kinds of cultures there. A lot of people from North Africa, like people from Tunisia and Morocco and Algeria. There's also Senegalese people. There's all kinds of cultures in France. This is getting back to Sweden. That's where Sweden is located. If you look, anytime you want to look at the map of Europe, that's the boot. It looks like a boot. You see it comes down? That's Italy. Anytime you're looking for Italy, it looks like a boot. If you go above it, then you start seeing France, and you start seeing Germany. And if you go even further up, you get to Denmark. And if you go across that water, you start to see Scandinavia. And when I say that's where the Vikings came from, they're like Norwegian, Danish. That's all Scandinavia, Swedish people especially. Most people live down at the bottom area. You see it's like a long strip, the country. They live at the bottom because it's so cold when you start going up. You're getting up towards the top of the planet. It's so high up on the planet that is about 12 o'clock at night. It's just bright. They call it midnight sun. When I first went to Sweden, I was shocked I had to pull the blinds and put on like a mask to be able to go to sleep, or either just pull the blinds and pretend it's nighttime, because it never gets dark for a couple months. And they call it midnight sun. And if you want to have fun, you go 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning and just go for a bike ride, because it's daylight out and nobody's on the streets. Everybody's sleeping. And it's really weird to go to a town where it's just nobody's in the town except for you going home. The opposite happens during the winter. This is about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 11 o'clock in the morning. It never gets bright. It's all because Sweden and Scandinavia is high up. If you go even higher up, it never gets dark or it never gets light. It depends on where you are. So I love being there. It was interesting to see all these different cultures, and I did get to see something really interesting called the Ice Hotel. Ice Hotel is all ice, even the beds, even the seats that you sit on, even the rooms made as ice. Every year they have different artists go and they carve a room. They make a new room, it melts, then they build it again and they have different artists. It's an international hotel. If you ever want to see it, it's called the Ice Hotel. It's a little higher up than Stockholm, but that's what it looks like. And like I said, artists try to outdo each other. Every year there's something different, some kind of sculpture made of ice and snow. This is Thailand, so let's get into geography again. Who knows, you see that area right here that almost looks like Africa and South America? Where do you think that country is? Anybody know that big country? Yes? Begins with an I. India. That's India. Go across is the Bay of Bengal, and then you start to see Thailand. That red area is Thailand. Okay, Thailand is great because they have, if you ever want to give yourself like the feeling of what it's like to buy anything or go shopping, if anyone likes to shop and buy things, they have something called a night market. I had a friend, he brought me to Thailand. He said, you don't need to pack anything, because when we got there, there was a huge market open at night. It was almost like a little city. You could buy almost anything there. Chairs, living room sets, T-shirts, clothing, computers. Everything was at the night market. But I didn't spend the whole time there. I spent it mostly in like the jungle area with my friend at a hotel area, living really simply, where all we did was swim and eat and talk to people. I painted for a little bit. I saw people, how they lived. I saw people, they saw me painting, and they came around and they were very curious. And let me see. Also, another trip was Senegal. Again, getting into our geography, that's West Africa. That's way over to the area to the west. And Senegal was amazing. I met some great people. And I spent some time even in a desert learning about the culture too. Now I say all this because, like I said, remember, I grew up in that little town. Most of the people in the town that I grew up with are still there. And it's like that in a lot of the U.S., but I encourage you to go see the world. There's so much out there. There's so many beautiful things to see and do. That's the hotel I stayed with in Senegal. It was really inexpensive and it was beautiful. It was right on the beach. So I'm opening it back up for questions, and I think if you have anything, let's talk. Yes? You have a question? Okay, who has a question? Just raise your hand. Okay, what's your question?
At what age your career started? At what age?
My career started, like I professionally had work printed in a newspaper when I was an intern. So my career started early 20s, like maybe 21, something like that. Yes. My favorite what? Cover?
No, your favorite color.
Color. I like dark colors. I like blue. And I like the shade of black. Yes, you have a question over there?
How old are you now?
53. Yes. What's my what? R. Gregory Christie.
What's your favorite color?
Favorite color is black or blue?
My favorite color blue too.
All right. Yes? You have a question? A little bit louder?
What was your favorite place you traveled to?
Berlin, Germany. You can get an apartment that's huge. I had a friend she had an apartment that had 2 levels and paying $400 a month. You had to walk upstairs to get to the top area. And people live, at the time I was there, the apartments were huge. And it's great if you're a painter and you want to paint and you're only paying $300 or $400 for an apartment. And it's in a nice, safe area too. I love Berlin. Yes. A little bit louder? It depends. When it comes to I don't give out that kind of information, but I can tell you this. And also I'm going to encourage you to be careful too. As you gain success, you don't have to tell everybody about it. The best thing is to just kind of keep it down, keep it low, and let people be inspired. But to go around and saying, I did this, I do that, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that I'm happy. I'm telling you, I know really wealthy, I've seen people that are wealthy, that have beautiful houses, but they're never in them. They work so much, they never actually enjoy the house. They have a beautiful wife, beautiful family, and kids. They don't enjoy it. Life is important to be really focused on who you are, what makes you happy, and this is the gem. This is a very wealthy guy that $100,000 a week is nothing to him, but of all the people on the planet, he hired me to come travel 24 hours to come teach a group of kids. I believe it's because I was polite. I believe also because I didn't try to act like I'm the best illustrator. You have to have me over there. Humility can take you far. Education is the second part to help you. An illustrator for children's books, to answer your question more directly, you can make anywhere from $20,000 a book to a $200,000 book contract with several books. It depends on how many awards you won and your name recognition. If you can do a book and the librarians know it, you have a pretty solid career. But here's the best part about doing children's books. You get royalties. All of you. I didn't know my biggest mistake. No one's ever asked me, like, what would you do differently? What was your mistake? I didn't know about investing. I didn't know about when you make money, don't spend it all. So I'm giving you a gem. You have phones you're gonna have when you get to high school. You can start saving monies and learn about something called compound interest. It's better than putting your money in a bank. And remember, like, you make money, don't go buy cars and a big house. And like, even if you get an NFL contract, let's say you're lucky enough to get to the NFL. If you buy a $1 million house, you have to pay taxes on the house. And when you're not making the same amount of money, it's harder to keep doing it. Biggest thing I would suggest is to remember how to invest and to make money work for you so that you don't have to work and don't have to take jobs. Do it because you love it. Gives you choices. Money does not make your life happy. Happier, it makes it more easier. Because if you can't do something, you can hire somebody to do it for you, or someone that's what is the key to money. It's a tool. Yes?
What's your favorite food?
My favorite food?
No, what is your favorite
Book? Probably the Bad News for Outlaws and another book called Jazz Baby. Yes, you have a question? I work in pencil to draw, but I work in everything, because when I was young, I used to go to the art store and try different materials. Yes?
What's your favorite food?
My favorite what? Food. It's hard to pick one. I like gumbo. I have family from Louisiana, and I like gumbo. Anybody ever have that or know what that is? I love to cook, so I cook that up sometimes. Yes, you have a question over there? Nice and loud.
Who is your supporter?
Oh, no, we have her question. What's your question? The very first country I visited?
What was the first country you did your artwork in?
Well, I grew up here, so the first country that I went to go see was Holland, and I went to Amsterdam. I couldn't believe there was a place like that on the planet, so I went to go to Amsterdam, and Amsterdam was heavy in the slave trade, the Dutch. If you learn your history, the Dutch East Indian Company and the Dutch West Indian Company, and they actually, the Dutch people didn't necessarily have slaves, but they were traders of slaves all over through the Caribbean, and West Africa, and all that. So when you go, if all of us were to go to Amsterdam, we'd blend right in because there's so many people that are citizens based on the history that you just blend in. If you go to Germany, you stand out. You go to Sweden, you kind of stand out depending where you go. But Holland, there's so many people of color. There's all kinds of cultures there. People from India, Indonesia, and they're there. They're there. I love that country. That's a really interesting place. Yes.
Do you get frustrated?
Yes. Just because I'm on a stage and have a microphone doesn't mean I have answers to everything. I make mistakes. My biggest problem is procrastination. If you gave me a job 10 years, and you say, you got 10 years of this job, in the past, I used to do it in the last 2 weeks. And I learned now to just try to do a little bit at a time and give myself time to build towards it. I'm telling you all these things because you're young. You have like a choice. You have a life. You can make your life whatever you want. And you have to really focus on you. You have to be appreciative of your teachers and things like that. Okay? How's our time? We're good? I don't mind. I'll take all the questions you want, but how's our time? No, that's not for us to say. Well, while we're finding it out, you have a question? You have a question?
What was your favorite state that you went to?
My favorite what?
Your favorite state.
Who's asking the question? Okay, what's the question?
What was your favorite state that you went to?
Favorite state? Florida. Better say it right. All right, well, thank you. And remember, my name is Gregory Christie. Gregory Christie.
Please give a big round of applause to Mr. Christie. Did you guys enjoy the presentation? Yes? Awesome, right? So the next part of the program is we are all going to the seminar room 1 and 2. Just follow Miss Francie and Miss Venkata, Miss V. So we'll share cut in half. The little ones are going to go into the coloring sheet. The older ones are going to the scavenger hunt. Then we are going to have a lunch. Okay? Thank you guys. Please come follow Miss Francie and follow Miss V.